going to bring up a face that should be well familiar to all of you. He was one of our founding members of KCFA. He's an organic farmer on Kaneohe Farms. He has 2 master's degrees and is currently running a research project on soil health and coffee leaf rust. So I am very happy to welcome Colehour Bondera and KCFA board member. Thank you.
I will be patient. Thank you. Aloha, thank you all for having me up here today. I appreciate it. I think generally speaking, it's true. My subject matter is soil health. However, the real true title of my research is, as it states, there are organic farming systems options for control of coffee leaf rust in Kona. And I will mention, as it also shows you, that it's sponsored by Organic Farming Research Foundation. I have established and have continued support from the University of Hawaii, from CTAR, from PBARC, as this has been ongoing. So I should be able to press a button on this to make it move. Is that correct? Thank you. Very good. So just generally speaking, the goals of the research involve farmers in defining coffee leaf rust subject efforts. That is the primary goal, frankly. Farmers as leaders is the purpose, not directed to what to do by non-farmers. The process of the research is to involve farmers in every step, incorporate input, and seek commonalities. So I'm not really going to be able to talk about results of the research, but the data by itself, in my opinion, doesn't stand on its own no matter what the research is. You have to give it a context, and the context is the actual farm. And we need to remember and loop back and stay focused on our purpose. The conclusion of where we're at so far and of this process is diversified organic farms, hand-on research. There's 5 participants. For the last 10 months, we already have good data to show, which is not going to be the focus of what I'm doing today, is showing you data. I'm going to talk about first where this is coming from. My main approach is to give you my perspective, because my general experience and feeling over the years is there isn't an answer. I'm not trying to give you the answer. I grew up on a small farm. I hand-milked cows. I built fence. I went on and studied international studies. I focused on community development and agriculture. Like Suzanne said, I have 2 master's degrees from the University of California, Davis, one in agricultural education, one in a Master of Science with an agricultural economics focus. And both of those master's degrees, I worked with directly a minimum of 30 farms on each of them so that I had statistical validity in my data. And I moved on and worked in international project management, including research in both Senegal and Guatemala. And then I got the chance to nearly die when I was hit by an asleep driver. Why is that relevant? Because it moved me back to my goal, which is become an organic farmer and stop being distracted. Organic to take responsibility for our impact on the earth and the planet and human health. Organic at its roots, if you read the legal definitions, means local solutions and local inputs. That's what you actually are required. Like chemical agriculture, organic has some who are into the dollars first, but my wife and I really seek the good first. And if you look at Hawaii history, and the coffee in Hawaii, Kona coffee, it was for nearly 100 years all organic. That's what it was. And so it's not a question of whether or not it could be. Why not learn from that? money first or integrity first, I think is my question, profit or health? And really the answer is why choose? Why not focus on what works? So to better understand governmental processes, I will mention that in my broad overview that I decided to serve, and I served for 5 full years on the National Organic Standards Board, which advises the Secretary of Agriculture on organic standards. And I did do that, and I'm proud of it to this day because I think it's a critical component of understanding the government. What happens with our research so far? Well, we can, my comment here is that people can use the internet for ideas, but farmers need more than that. And Kona Coffee Farmers Association has done something very critical related to history, which is recognize that history is vital and be based on Kona typica as a variety, because why get rid of the history that worked, like I said earlier? And when new pests and diseases come about, the question isn't what to do about it, it's how to make what we have thrive. So what are farmers missing through all of that? Coffee leaf rust came to Hawaii at a good moment, in my opinion, and it's not really a good moment in some ways. Why am I wearing a mask, right? Because COVID, which is also a virus, was affecting humans directly. And so how can we keep strong? How can our immune system stay healthy so that we can get through COVID-19 is very similar to coffee leaf rust with trees. We got to start with the foundation and the immune system. And it's the whole system in organics. It's the soil health, the tree health, and all the things that are related. And, no negative meant, but the truth is most Kona coffee farmers are not, and there's lots of us. There's hundreds and hundreds, 700 or 600, 700. We're not going to replant coffee trees. And frankly, imported chemical inputs are not something that most farmers are going to be able to access and use. And also, the best achieved by any chemical input, no matter where in the world and how many years back you go, it doesn't matter, is a delay of CLR impacts. No solution. There isn't any that have solved CLR. There's no such thing. Around the world, over time, there's also not a varietal solution for CLR. So those approaches are postponements, but they aren't an answer, and I think research shows that healthy, well-cared-for coffee survives better. And honestly, as a coffee farmer, and I think anybody in this room that's a coffee farmer knows, in a low production year, there's not enough income to feed the trees enough. And that's not a question, that's the truth for most of us in terms of affording these things. So I think the fertilizer issue is significant, and I think that indigenous microorganisms, which is, I'll talk about briefly in a moment, but they can help the trees stay strong. Micronutrients, antibiotics that are place-specific, and they're available. And frankly, the farmer participants in this research have been willing to input local organics and monitor the results of the impacts, and I think that that's critical. So let me talk briefly about the concept of science, because I come to you with 2 master's degrees, but what does the word science mean? Because science by itself doesn't have a definition, right? What does the word science mean? Well, there's social science, there's economic science, there's physical sciences, and if you think about it, science, you have to have a balance between those parts, realistically and truthfully, because they can't stand on their own. And I think that that's possibly a different perspective than many people will share with you, because there's one answer and it's more like a hierarchy, but from my experience and perspective, that's really not what it comes down to. Farmer choices haven't been random for the history of Kona typica. They were based on things like consumer demand, which wasn't arbitrary, and the differences between quote-unquote Hawaiian and the flavor and taste that people seek. They seek Kona typica taste. And I think that that by itself, those consumer demands is critical. And when you look at the economics, the economic options for most Kona farmers, like I already said, doesn't include variety replanting. Tree and therefore soil health is the starting point for a healthy crop. Farmers can lead, but even though I have 2 master's degrees, we don't need to be academics. We need to know what works. And science really isn't about finding the answer, but it's looking at and offering options to all participants and all involved. Certified organic has actually concise scientific definitions legally. And that's unlike things like pesticide-free or regenerative or sustainable, all of which try to get consumer and governmental support, but without definitions. And so I think that that's, generally speaking, my view on science is it's affected by all of those aspects, and it is a triangle that has to work together. Actions of the research. So 5 organic farms have been participating from the beginning. Divided into 4 sections is how we did it. And our goal was to trial, excuse me. Our goal was to trial additional Hawaiian-produced organic fertilizer as an input and indigenous microorganisms, including as well variations thereof. So we had a control sample, we have a fertilizer sample, we have an indigenous microorganism sample, and we have an indigenous microorganism and fertilizer sample section of each of the farms. And that's where data is collected from. The fertilizer is a composted combination of processed fish waste and biochar, things that are from right here. The IMOs include a number of basic mixes, which is basically bacteria, protozoa. It's things that are going to be naturally occurring and are functional for the soil health. That's the goal, through mild fermentation. And data collection and association has been, I've worked with Dr. Hector Valenzuela from the University of Hawaii, with Dr. Melissa Johnson of PBARC, and I'll just mention Dr. Bob Schaefer, Dr. Ted Radovich of CTAR, Dr. Marissa Wall of PBARC, all have worked with me, both in encouragement, but also support, and local entities, the sponsorship included local entities like Kona Coffee Farmers Association to pursue this. And I'm going to present you a little bit of very preliminary data in a moment. Even the participant farms haven't seen it. I just got it yesterday, so it's brand new. But it's very hard to put data in a context when the research has been so short. And there's no proof until we have several years of data. So, I hesitate a little bit, but I want to mention that before I do that. But really, farmers don't really learn from data. Farmers learn from each other. They learn from talk story. And many farmers learn from doing it themselves, not just reading about it or looking it up on the internet. They're going to try it. And I think in organic farming especially, but generally speaking, diversified farms are very common in Kona. And a healthy organic system is not a monoculture. That period, end of conversation. And that's critical to recognize and understand. And before I show you those, I'll just say, a general comment that's worth sharing is that no industry or program should be promoting putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. So that's the reason that I really think monoculture doesn't make sense. So this is the first one of the result slides that I can share with you. Excuse me, not trying to yell at you there. This is data from our research so far. So coffee leaf rust incidents on the 5 farms combined, and it's tracking the incidents, shows basically no difference, which is what you would expect if you understand research, because there has been no chance for any impact from the inputs among the treatments. And by the end of the year, it's increasing, and above 40% on average of incidents on all the farms. So that's general, and it's not negative or hopeful. It's just the reality and where it's at, and we're carrying on. You can see, I don't know if you can read those little things or the colors, but it's just the different 4 treatments on combined on the farms. And then the other data that I want to share with you is almost, I'm not going to say it's contradictory to what I said, but what I just said was that no difference in CLR, well, you shouldn't expect any because of the treatment so far. However, this slide actually suggests some potential difference, and statistically it's not valid. It hasn't been happening for enough time, but it suggests, through leaf retention at least, that fertilizer treatments has the highest leaf retention on the farms compared to the other options. And I think that that's worth knowing and worth seeing as an example and something we'll be pursuing. It's what was expected, actually. It's what was applied to test, is can fertilizer help coffee trees, was sort of a summary of the simplest way to say what we were doing, but we made it, scientifically valid to show. So future steps in this research. What are the next steps? Continue data collection, continue comparison through data analysis, continue outreach to farmers. Frankly, to involve more farmers. If there are farmers in the audience or farmers you're aware of or you're interested in communicating or getting involved, communicate. Let me know. It's an option at this point in time. This research will be continuing, and we could involve more farmers. I wished I had created a handout today. I did not. I apologize, but creating handouts and a website is part of the goal. Involving Spanish speakers beyond things like translation, because Spanish speakers are doing a lot of the coffee work, and translation isn't communication beyond just what is being said, but I think having conversations is critical. CTAR and PBARC will continue collaboration, I anticipate, and that's what I hope. I'm looking for group collaboration from organizations, Kona Coffee Farmers Association, Hawaii Farmers Union United, Hawaii Organic Farmers Association, to do promotion and to do extension and outreach to people. And I think that, my last little point is collaboration with governmental entities, including entities like the Hawaii Department of Agriculture. And I really appreciate that we have a county council person in the room right now, because with county council to be doing things like focusing on how to get local inputs accessible to farmers, because over the last 40, 50 years, you almost can't get them because they're too expensive, they're inaccessible, it's not something that we can do. And I think that by itself is a hurdle that we need to overcome. And I think Hawaii Department of Agriculture and the County Council are the places to start that. And when I've interacted with Governor Josh Green on this topic, he agrees. So I think that people recognize that the inaccessibility and just the importation of things like fertilizer, for example, and things like chemical inputs doesn't make sense from state sustainability of looking out for our own needs and interests. And we need to try harder to get local inputs to be the focus for a lot of reasons, not just transportation. I already have wrapped up, but just to give you my reminder one last time, my name is Colehour Bondera. Like I said, this was sponsored by Organic Farming Research Foundation. This research was. I really strongly appreciate the fact that they saw the value of this. And I do have some cards with me in one of my pockets here. I'm happy to share. I'm not going to be here very much more of the day, but I'm happy to share a card. I'm happy for people to contact me, email me, tell me you're interested, ask questions, etc. Thank you all for your time. So the question was if there are any companies in Hawaii that are producing fertilizer, organic or otherwise, and I don't, honestly, I'm not an industry kind of guru in terms of general answers, but I am an organic farmer and I have long sought organic fertilizer, and there is an entity that does produce the fertilizer that we are using in this research, which is a certified organic fertilizer, which is fish waste and biochar. And they don't sell it commercially because they sell it to farmers who need it that know of them. So I think the answer is to some degree yes, but I think it's a big impediment, honestly. So you can't share the name of that company? Email me and I am happy to.
We can't hear you at all. Let me give you the mic. We have about 1 minute still.
Saleh from Africa Coffee Bureau, a supporting member of KCFA. I was congratulating him on his research and appreciating 2 strong statements he made. On the slide, the last slide before his contact, the first statement there is outreach. I want to marry that point with 2 prior statements he made. He said, you don't need academics. You are interested in what works. The other, you learn from each other, not from the data. Although I'm not sure he meant you are not interested in the data. But because if Susanna is controlling, is trying to prune her farm, the neighbor ought to do the same for the sake of managing such a crisis in escalating. Mine was just to reaffirm and congratulate you on what you're doing, and specifically in those 3 statements he made. Thank you.
No, thank you. I don't have a lot to say or add to your observations and comments. I will say one little thing stood out very briefly, which is the fact that coffee leaf rust doesn't recognize borders, no matter if you have fences or if you have anything. It's a virus just like with COVID, and it moves. So neighbors, direct neighbors especially, but all neighbors are affected. So I think that we need to incorporate that into our decision-making and activities. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Colehour.